Hey everyone, this is Elenbaas from Nightlight Astrology. Today we're going to take a look at Venus squaring Pluto. Venus is in the sign of Taurus. It's just entered Taurus where it's picked up dignity. Immediately it's making a square to Pluto in Aquarius, who's also about to turn retrograde. So a powerful square between these two planets that we're going to take a look at today from the standpoint of 5 different things that you might notice. So one of our little what to watch for lists today that will help us turn that archetypal jewel and pay attention and notice the presence of this aspect in our lives this week. So anyway, that's the agenda for today. Before we get into it, don't forget to like and subscribe. Share your comments and reflections or stories if you have them. Transcripts of any of my daily talks can be found on the website, nightlightastrology.com. When you go over to Nightlight Astrology, here are the promotions for the day. Right now, I'm reminding people about our monthly talks. So the talk for May on May 16th is Neptune in Aries. We are going to start looking at the archetypal meaning of Neptune in Aries, which is the big outer planetary shift happening next year. It's an appropriate time to consider it because Neptune is culminating, turning retrograde at the final degree of Pisces this month. And so we're going to take a look at Neptune's significations when it moves into Aries and what we can anticipate from that transit, both personally and collectively, in my monthly webinar series, May 16th. 12th house is our topic for June, and Uranus into Gemini is our topic for July. So you can sign up for those, and you can also sign up for Pluto, Neptune, or Uranus in love. If you go to the shop tab, you're going to notice that we have a whole bunch of things for sale on the shop page, including all of our previous series, some of the masterclass series that we've done. You can also get access to the new book that I'm writing, The Oracle Speaks, as it's released chapter by chapter before it comes out into paperback form. So lots of cool stuff on the shop page. Be sure to check that out. Courses. New courses start in June. So we are really excited for our new programs. First year class, Ancient Astrology for the Modern Mystic, begins June 16th. This is a 1-year program. We immerse ourselves for a full year into natal astrology from the Hellenistic perspective. Of course, my background includes archetypal psychology and astrology, so there's always a bit of that in everything I do, but you're going to scroll down to learn more about it. At the end of today's video, if you stick around afterward, you can hear me going into greater depth and detail about the program and what it includes. And then also at the bottom, you'll find our early bird payment and early bird installment plan, which saves you significantly on the cost of the course. That is available until May 15th. So you have a little bit of time remaining to take advantage of that. Of course, we also offer need-based tuition assistance, which is a sliding scale you can work within to choose your own monthly rate that works for you. This is for people who might be on a fixed or limited income. We know that there are people out there who might really want to study astrology, but otherwise, you can't afford a training program. And so we have this option available so that nobody's priced out. So hopefully that affordable pricing makes it accessible for those of you who might need a little bit of help. If you have any questions about anything regarding the program, tuition assistance, anything, email us, info@nightlightastrology.com. When you apply for the tuition assistance, by the way, you'll enter in the price you can afford, and then we set you up with a plan right there. We match you with the plan that we have that would work best for you. So it's automated in that sense. And there's also, if one of those plans doesn't work, we have an option where you can email us and tell us your situation, and we try to work something out. All right. Anyhow, that's it for promotions for the day. So let's get into Venus's square to Pluto. Now, Venus's square to Pluto, we're going to have 5 things that we're watching for today. And, this has been building as the week has gone on. So I'm going to show you the aspect, but you should have been feeling it already. Let's just take a look. If I back this up, here's Monday, April 29th, Venus enters Taurus and starts applying to the square with Pluto right away. So today, Wednesday, it's really last night, Tuesday, April 30th, into today that the square occurs. Then we have about a 3-degree separation range, which takes us all the way till Friday, May 3rd. So you might be feeling this square anytime this week, really, Monday through Friday. We're looking today at the perfection that's just occurred. I mean, this is Wednesday morning and it's just already passed. So yesterday into today, you could be looking at this. Of course, the beginning of this week, we needed to start off with horoscopes and the monthly overview. So we're kind of just catching up on this a little bit, but it's not too late. Today, you're going to very much be feeling it if you haven't already. And even if some of these things came through, let's say yesterday, hopefully today will give you an awareness of what's been going on. Hindsight is one of the best things astrology does for us, is to provide symbolic and archetypal hindsight. Oh, that's what was going on. Really helpful. So anyhow, it's interesting. Venus is in her own sign. We're coming up on a big new moon cycle in Taurus, which I think is going to be one of the most sweet and fruitful of the year, considering Jupiter Uranus just conjoined there. Venus is in her home sign, protected from combustion by virtue of being in her own chariot, an exalted new moon in Taurus on May 7th. So Venus's square to Pluto right now, I think, is pretty interesting given where everything is heading in the next 6 days with the next new moon. Anyhow, we'll say more about that when we get to the new moon. But for today, Venus-Pluto combination from Taurus to Aquarius, 5 things to watch for. Number 1 is that we have to remember that Venus in Taurus is very sensual. So we're not talking about a placement for Venus that is super mental or rational or intellectual or ideological or conceptual, right? All those abstract qualities of air that Pluto in Aquarius brings in have a very powerful influence on a planet that is really pretty earthy and sensual and physical and embodied in Taurus. So when we bring that combination together, one of the things that we can do is we can start to impress or imprint upon Venus some sense of there being a higher design. So if you think about Pluto in Aquarius as sort of belonging to the realm of like sacred geometry, ideal triangles and algebra and calculus and astrophysics and string theory, that's Aquarius's territory as a fixed air sign ruled by Saturn. It's a sign that pertains to the kind of abstract but ideal forms that govern reality. Aquarius is associated with the realm of the gods and the human's ability to access that realm of the gods and have some insight or to belong to it or to aspire to become more than human, so to speak. That's all very Aquarian. And so that next level of things, politically, scientifically, that's all Aquarian territory, which at times can actually become dogmatic and objectifying and rigid. So it's not like it's just a pure, like Aquarius is just purely progressive in some perfect sense. No, but Aquarius does give us that sense that there are ideas and structures and systems of thought that can inform the way that we live life and potentially make it better. It depends. Sometimes we discover ideas that are very powerful, but they're not necessarily good for us or good for the planet. So right now, one of the things that happens when Venus in Taurus gets into a square with Pluto in Aquarius is we start to see Venus paired with a planet of great intellectual abstraction in Pluto in Aquarius. So you could start thinking about the ideal image of perfect beauty. When you think about, I watched a documentary some time ago about Mr. Olympians and like all of the training and it's just crazy the amount that goes into some of those like super pro bodybuilding contests, right, for men and women. And anyway, what I thought was really interesting though is that really they're the sculpting of the body, and this is just in a whether you like this kind of stuff or not, I was just fascinated by it, that there's a sense in which they're trying to shape the body into an ideal image, like a statue from ancient Greece or something, like the like they're trying to look like a god. Mr. Olympia. It's very Aquarian, and I know we don't think of things like that, but when Aquarius mingles with the earth, then we start getting things like a gold medal in the Olympics or Mr. Olympia or Mrs. Olympia or whatever. Now that could be a powerful and beautiful thing to have some kind of gold standard that we're reaching toward that Platonic realm of the ideal forms and images in the mind of God, but trying to bring the earth into that space. That's the same kind of thing that might be behind building a sustainable ecological farm or something like that. But it could also be Mr. Olympia or a gold medal in track, whatever, the potential for something earthy to mirror something that lives up on the mountain of the gods. That's the Venus-Pluto combination. But you have to remember that what comes with that is also the potential for perfectionism, and an inability to live with the the mess and the imperfection that is somehow inherent and natural and a part of what Earth is. So Aquarius can be very perfectionistic in a way that might actually compromise something of the natural earthy qualities of Venus in Taurus. For example, a lot of those bodybuilders, and also the Olympians and stuff like that, they train so hard that they don't have a life. Or they in the bodybuilding world, they have to use these steroid regimens that can actually wreck their health in the long run, right? So the point is that, like, at what cost do we try to make the Earth perfect? When there's a way in which it's perfect in its mess. Does that make sense? So that's a Venus-Pluto dynamic from Taurus to Aquarius that's worth thinking about right now. Number 2, a flaw in the image, a fly in the ointment. Here's the thing, is that Venus-Pluto, for all that we're just talked about ideal images, Pluto is also about the underworld. And so what we could also do is take everything we just said and spin it a little bit so that what we get is the inability, the frustration, and the difficulty in accepting the flaws, accepting the blemishes, accepting that there are flies in the ointment. It's just part of life on Earth. And so as much as Venus can project this powerful ideal when it squares Pluto in Aquarius, we will also be presented as Pluto tends to bring up the chaos, the unconscious material, and the reality of death and impermanence and pain and suffering. And if there's any planet that actually represents the sort of power of the yin, which is so earthy and so embodied, and it says, like, there's something very dissociated and sort of masculine about Olympian images of perfection. Well, Pluto in Aquarius can actually bring up the shadow of our perfectionism and our idealism. And when you combine it with Venus in Taurus, then it says, no matter what you do, you're going to get wrinkles as you age. There's no serum that can take that away forever. Do you know what I mean? So we might also be having to deal with things that just can't live up to some kind of abstract or ideal perfect image, whether that's in relationships or in the body or in any place that is that Venus and Taurus resembles. So, number 3, a physical, sensual, and rational transformation. What's interesting, though, is that you pair the same 2 planets, and there's a way in which you can transform in a way, in a powerful manner, but one that's connected, mind and body. So if you so many of us have had, well, probably something like astrology has come into our lives as a part of a larger movement of mind-body connections. Well, I mean, what is astrology doing? Ultimately, it is, we live in the sublunary world. It's the physical embodied world, a world of change and flux. And yet what we're doing is we're trying to see the forms, the archetypes, these higher patterns. It's like a psychedelic mandala that's actually behind and moving through all events all around us. That higher perspective here, present in the material of our lives, helps us to live a mind-body connected lifestyle. Astrology is fundamentally about learning how to bring the higher mind into the daily life that we live, so that we can see the shape of destiny, so to speak, which is nothing more than the working of the archetypes, the gods, the patterns playing out in creation. And we have access to that. We have connection to that. We don't get overwhelmed and lost in the natural spin cycle of life in the sublunary world. We have some grounding, some anchoring in a higher perspective. You don't want it to get so abstract and dissociated that you're just sitting calculating shit on charts all the time. You also need to live an embodied life. And in a sense, it is equally important that you constantly forget about the astrology only to remember it again, which is why hindsight in astrology is so powerful. But the point is that astrology itself is a kind of a blending of the physical embodied world and the higher intellectual and somewhat abstract realm of the forms. But that's the pairing of Venus and Pluto in Aquarius. We can transform our lives by making more and more meaningful connections between mind and body. And so that's number 3. Number 4 is that there's just, broadly speaking, a way in which beauty, health, bios, from the Greek meaning life, and science can come together during this time. It's a great time to, if you want to learn more about the way in which, any kind of like, oh, I'm going to learn about my macro split, or I'm going to learn more about sleeping or sleep regulation or meditation before bed, or any way in which you start studying the connection between mind and body, that there's access to a kind of intellectual understanding of things that are sensual, physical, and embodied. The Venus Pluto in this combination could be someone going to beauty school, could be going to fashion design school. It could be someone taking classes on architecture, or a class on how to form or shape some kind of raw material, like, I don't know, how to carve something beautiful into a block of wood or granite or something like that. So the connection between earth and air works like that, just broadly speaking. And there's some really neat ways that you might notice that connecting right now. And then number 5 is just the basic Venus Pluto combination, which is that unconscious material can come exploding up out of the underworld, and it can have a very powerful transformative effect. Death and rebirth. Death and rebirth. every time every time that a Pluto transit comes up, it's like there's just like a school of pigeons that are all just like clucking, and they're all just saying the same thing. But what sorry guys, what does that actually mean? It means that there's a way in which we get in, when you get in touch with unconscious material, it's life-giving. It's life-giving specifically because it has to come up and out of a place that is unseen or dormant, or a place that we don't have access to or we don't understand. And when that comes into our awareness, often the realization, or its coming, is somewhat destructive, in the same way that, a volcano erupting has to break the earth apart, and then, it's hot and it can melt things. And it's a good image to pair with a transit like this. But the material that's coming up is usually, it's substantive. It's as alive and powerful as fire or as water, or anything elemental that's kind of being released. And in that sense, it's life-giving. But in order for it to be released, it has to come up and out of things that are kind of stuck or relatively more stagnant. And that's where we get that image of death and rebirth. But it really is just about a life-giving power being released and having to break up and out of structures that maybe have contained it. If you think about it like that, it's not quite the same as saying like, oh, you're going to go through a shamanic initiation where the crows pick your bones apart and then put it all back together. It's not always that dramatic, but it can be just about, kind of energy that's been stuck and not necessarily in your awareness coming out. It's life-giving, but when that comes out and it interrupts the status quo, there's a feeling that we get. It's just, as it's coming, it can be a little ominous, like you feel it coming. And then when it actually releases, it's disruptive. And so that disruptiveness could be understood as a kind of death, but only if you think of like normalcy as life, I guess. Anyhow, I will forever I will forever be annoyed with people who always just use the same phrases with astrology. It's like those phrases are useful, but it's good to like try to find new ways of describing and seeing things always, because that's how the astrology stays fresh. Anyhow, okay, my rant is over. I hope this was useful. 5 things to think about for Venus squaring Pluto. Stick around after I sign off if you want to learn more about the Year 1 program that starts June 16th. It is a fantastic program. Right now, with Uranus and Jupiter conjoining, Pluto in Aquarius, it's a really good time. Like if you feel like astrology at this point in your life is sort of like, it's the way you think, and it's like an operating language in your consciousness, in your psyche. One of the best things you can do for yourself is learn to speak the language more proficiently for yourself, which you're always going to have. I still have my favorite astrologers, favorite streams of information where I listen to other people talk about it. But it's super powerful to be able to be your own astrologer, and to do so in a way that is in line with thousands of years worth of astrological history and tradition, and understanding where it all comes from philosophically and spiritually. It's one of the best things you can do for yourself if astrology is one of the spiritual like pillars of your life. So I highly recommend you check it out. Stick around after I sign off, and I hope to see some of you in class in June. All right, take it easy, everyone. Bye. Hey everyone, thanks for sticking around. I'm going to tell you a little bit about our upcoming program, Ancient Astrology for the Modern Mystic, my year one course in ancient Hellenistic astrology that begins on June 16th. If you'd like to learn more about it, of course, you can always do some digging and looking at the course page on your own. I'll take you over there right now and walk you through it. But if you want to, you can go over yourself and look. Nightlightastrology.com is the website. Click on the courses tab and go to the first year course. This is the one that begins on June 16th, the perfect place to start for people who would like to learn more about natal astrology from the Hellenistic point of view. So this is a one-year course in Hellenistic astrology, which is the oldest form of astrology, and it is the form from which all subsequent forms of astrology come from. It shares a lot in its roots with ancient Indian astrology. I'm going to tell you a little bit more about what characterizes Hellenistic astrology, but just to familiarize you with this page, when you go to the first year course page and scroll down, you can learn more about everything that's included in the course. Some of the main features include 30 classes on the year. These classes are spread out through units of curriculum. And in between the major units of curriculum, we have breakout study sessions led by our tutoring staff. We also have an interactive group forum discussion that is staffed with tutors year round. You always get your questions answered within 24 hours. So there's a lot of support built into the program as we work our way through the curriculum. We also have recommended reading, listening, optional quizzes, flashcards, bonus lectures, more than you could possibly read in a year, honestly. So we just have a large and long biography and sort of library of suggested bonus content that will fill in blanks and also supplement and deepen the material that we are studying. You get lifetime access to all the recordings. If you cannot attend the webinars live, they meet on the weekends, but if you can't attend them live, then you are welcome to follow along with the recordings, which are made available to you on the class website. So this class meets on Sundays from noon Central to 2 p.m. Central, or 1 Eastern to 3 p.m. Eastern time. And you might translate that, I guess, if you're on the West Coast, it would be 10 a.m. to noon Pacific time. During the program, in addition to working our way through all of the major curriculum, the major foundational elements of Hellenistic astrology, we place a strong emphasis on preparing ourselves to read charts for other people. Whether this is a hobby for you or something that you are endeavoring to practice professionally, the course is built for people who are really there for a lot of different reasons. This is your hobby. This is your passion. You hope to do this for really no one other than yourself, or maybe friends or family, or someone who really decides they want to start a practice. You can take this class at whatever level of interest or depth that you want because of the amount of material that we make available to you inside and outside of class. You always have access to the program too, so you can always take it at your own pace. You can attend live, follow along with the recordings, some combination of both. And then the breakout study sessions are really helpful in addition to our interactive group forum discussion. You can always ask us questions. You can email me anytime with questions. So we have a lot of support in place. Now, the curriculum, we move through the foundational elements of ancient astrology. You may look at the curriculum and say, well, I know something about these things already, but not really, not unless you've studied Hellenistic astrology, because the way that ancient astrologers talked about houses, signs, planets, aspects, essential dignities, chart delineation is radically different from what most people learn when they start studying modern astrology. The reason for that is that it's only been in the past couple of decades that we have finally had access to the vast majority of ancient texts on Hellenistic astrology. We were literally missing the bulk of our ancient tradition. So the kind of rebirth or reawakening of ancient astrology is really new, which makes this very exciting because everything you've learned in modern astrology is probably coming from the lens of what is called psychological astrology, which is a way of looking at the birth chart in terms of the planet, signs, houses, and the way in which they may relate to your psychological makeup or profile. In this way, birth charts are a little bit like an elaborate Myers-Briggs. So you have the personality profiling, which is the way that most people look at planets, houses, and signs. You'll notice my Mars, my Venus, and they think of them as aspects or dimensions of your character and personality. And there's nothing wrong with that. In fact, we utilize much of the same language. And we certainly have that approach available to us in this program because ancient astrologers also looked at the chart in terms of psychological makeup. However, one of the main distinctions between modern astrology and ancient astrology is the emphasis that ancient astrologers placed on prediction. They looked at the chart in terms of a field of karma that defines the native or the individual's fate or destiny. And so we look at houses, signs, planets, aspects as a way of understanding what patterns, themes, and topics are going to be most prevalent and at what times, because they also had a very elaborate system of timing techniques. The year one program is all about learning to read the birth chart and understanding the ancient Hermetic sort of Platonic Pythagorean philosophy that was behind the establishment of all of the doctrines and teachings of astrology itself. So it's really about understanding where everything comes from. It's the why behind everything that greatly empowers people when they're learning astrology. It is not nearly the same when you just study lists of adjectives and descriptions for houses, signs, planets, aspects. We want to understand why. Why do we do these things at all? Where did it all come from? And when you understand that, then you have something like a skeleton key by means of which you can access your own creativity, your own intuition, rather than being told, just play these notes in this order and it will sound good. You're learning to improvise. Which, could anyone ever want to play? Why would you want to play an instrument if someone told you, well, here's how to play this, play that, and you never learned how to play something of your own, or you never learned how to use the scales in ways that were magical and, pertain to your own genie, your own genius. So when we study ancient astrology, one of the main things we're doing is we're taking people beyond anything that they think they've learned about houses, signs, planets, aspects, and we're teaching them where it all came from. And once you have that, then you're really cooking with fire. You have a magical, intuitive capacity that is very rare and precious in astrology. So anyway, we move through a lot of different elements, but not in the way that you've ever learned them before. And that's a really important distinction. So anyway, after all of that has been said, in each unit, we spend, maybe up to 10 hours on houses. And then we have a breakout study session, and then we have reading and bonus material. So when we talk about houses in this class, you are learning where the concept of a house ever came from in the first place, what it is, how it works, and how it's different from a sign. You're also going to unlearn and break a lot of bad habits, because not by any intentional ignorance, but modern astrology, being bereft of its ancient textual tradition, has been teaching a lot of things that are just not in line with where the actual theoretical foundations of astrology come from. So you're also going to break some bad habits, which is really good for people who maybe know a little bit about astrology already, but are seeking to clarify and understand theory in the context of the 2,000-year history of astrology. So anyway, this class is going to prepare you to read birth charts for other people. But then by the end, one of the great things about the program is that the way we do that is not just by pumping you full of theory and history and philosophy. We are also, in the last portion of the program, inviting live clients into the class. And that's great, because when we have live clients come in, you're going to see me read from them using the theory and techniques that we've been studying. And you're going to see how they can be applied artfully, as well as, giving you some tools and methods and techniques to use to set you up for success. Seeing live astrology practice while studying it is the best way to learn. So the last portion of the program, we turn toward that hands-on approach. Anyway, so that's a bit about the program. If you have any questions you want to ask, email us, info@nightlightastrology.com. We're happy to answer any questions you have whatsoever. I also want to point people to the payment options at the bottom. Early bird payment saves you $500 off. That is a great way to save. The payment plan is breaking the tuition into 12 monthly installments. If that works better for you, no worries, you can do that. And then need-based tuition. We, for many, many years now, dating back to 2010 when I started teaching astrology, I've always had some kind of sliding scale option available for people when studying astrology. Sacred science like this should be accessible to people of all different socioeconomic backgrounds. So we pride ourselves on making sure that there is tuition assistance available, so that if your budget doesn't match with the payment price that we ask for, and that's an honest assessment that we trust you to make, that you can take advantage of the tuition assistance and set your price within a sliding scale that we provide for your monthly tuition for 12 months through the program. So please feel free to apply for that if it makes sense to you. We don't want people hurting themselves or overextending themselves. A price that fits your budget is available through the need-based tuition. We just ask that you apply early, because
we do fill up sometimes. So anyway, that is it. I hope that you will consider studying with us, and thanks for taking time to learn more about the program. See you later.